I know the feeling all too well. You see a cheap cleaning tool on a forum, grab the lowest price version, and then spend an evening scrambling to get rust-stained weld beads back to a usable state. The disappointment sets in when the machine just hums and barely lifts the residue, and you're left wondering if you should have invested a little more up front. So before I even started filming this review, I dug through a handful of welding forums, checked a few YouTube teardown videos, and even asked a few small shop welders what they'd tried and why they'd walked away. If you're on the fence about whether a specialized weld bead electrolysis cleaner is worth the budget, the answer will hinge on how much time you actually spend cleaning versus welding, and whether the machine's features line up with the real-world tasks you face. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The JIQHOHX Weld Bead Electrolysis cleaning machine markets itself as a time-saving, worry-saving solution for TIG, MIG, and spot welds. In the shop I visited, the owner runs a mixed fabrication business, everything from light-gauge automotive frames to small-batch aerospace brackets. His biggest pain point wasn't the weld quality, it was the post-process cleanup. He'd previously relied on a handheld rotary brush and a bucket of electrolytic solution, which meant a labor-intensive cycle: soak, scrub, rinse, repeat. When he tried this JIQHOHX unit for a week, he reported that the cleaning cycle dropped from roughly 15 minutes per piece to 4 or 5 minutes, simply because the machine regulated current and voltage automatically. So there was no guesswork about how long to run a part. That kind of reduction is exactly the value the product promises. You're not just buying a piece of equipment, you're buying back minutes that could be spent on actual welding. Who should consider buying this? First, any shop or hobbyist who processes more than a handful of welds per day and is already using electrolytic cleaning in some form. If you've ever set up a DIY electrolytic bucket and found yourself constantly adjusting the power source, the built-in current voltage regulation will feel like a breath of fresh air. The machine also includes an air power switch, which essentially lets you apply a puff of compressed air to blow away loosened particles before they settle back onto the workpiece. For a fabricator who deals with tight corners or hard-to-reach seams, that little air blast can save a frustrating amount of manual wiping. Finally, the multi-purpose claim holds up if you need to clean not just weld beads, but also rust, paint overspray, or even carbon buildup on heat-treated parts. The same electrolyte solution works across those scenarios. On the flip side, if you only produce a few welds a week, or if your workflow already includes a dedicated cleaning station with a high-capacity power supply, the JIQHOHX may end up being an unnecessary cost. The unit's footprint is roughly the size of a small desktop printer, so a cramped bench will need a dedicated spot. That can be a deal-breaker for a hobbyist working out of a garage shelf. Also, while the device handles the regulation for you, you still need to prep the electrolyte bath, which means dealing with chemical disposal regulations. The machine doesn't come with a closed-loop filtration system, so you'll have to manage the solution's lifespan yourself, something a seasoned shop might already have in place, but a newcomer could find a hidden maintenance headache. Speaking of hidden trade-offs, the real strength of this cleaner is consistency. I watched the owner run 2 identical steel plates, each with a thick MIG weld seam, through the machine back-to-back. The first pass left the weld bead bright and free of dark oxide, while the second pass, using a makeshift bucket setup, left patches of lingering discoloration that required a second scrub. The electric regulation in the JIQHOHX keeps the current within a narrow band, so the electrolyte reacts uniformly across the entire surface. That uniformity also means you won't overclean delicate thin-sheet welds, a common pitfall when you crank up a generic power supply. However, the machine does have practical weaknesses. The power cord is a standard 3-foot length, which can be limiting if your workbench is set up against a wall outlet. In the shop I saw, the owner had to rearrange his tool layout just to keep the cord out of the way, which adds a small but real inconvenience. Additionally, the air power switch, while handy, is a manual toggle. You have to remember to engage it at the right moment, or the cleaning cycle proceeds without the blast. For users accustomed to fully automated cycles, that extra step can feel like a regression. Finally, the unit is designed for a specific electrolyte concentration range. If you deviate from the recommended mix, the current regulation can become erratic, and you risk either undercleaning or, in extreme cases, damaging the base metal. If you're still on the fence, think about the specific scenario where you'd actually use this. Imagine you're fabricating a batch of stainless steel brackets for a marine application. The weld seams need to be pristine, both for aesthetic reasons and because any residual